Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Ever since Russia invaded Ukraine, Vladimir Putin has made it clear that he believes that the war he started isn't just about Ukraine. All of NATO is involved, especially the European members that he accuses of trying to encroach on Russia's borders through their support of Ukraine. In response, Russia has launched a hybrid war in Europe that has intensified in 2025. News just broke that Putin had made his latest move. A Russian spy ship has targeted a Royal Air Force, or RAF, plane, and it has led to the UK, sending a message to Putin that the country knows exactly what he is trying to do. On November 19, Euronews reported that a Russian Navy ship named Yantar had somehow ended up close to British waters. That alone wouldn't be too remarkable. Russia sends its ships into international waters all of the time, often skirting the boundaries between international and territorial waters in the process. But what made this incident different was that Russia's spy ship crew appears to have had the RAF on its mind. In addition to doing whatever it was doing so close to the UK, the ship shone a laser at RAF aircraft that had flown over to inspect the ship's progress. The War Zone, or TWZ, offered up plenty of extra details in its report on what the Russian spy ship was doing. It says that the laser incident happened on November 19, and that the ship using this kind of equipment represents the development of a concerning new trend that could end up being hazardous to those targeted. Speaking of targets, the Yantar apparently had a P-8A Poseidon MRA-1 maritime patrol aircraft in its sights, along with a Royal Navy Type 23 frigate. At least, those were the targets after the UK sent them to scout the Russian ship as it made its way through UK waters. TWZ adds that flight tracking data published by the Civic Intelligence X account reveals that the UK may have also deployed Typhoon fighter jets accompanied by Voyager tankers, though this has yet to be confirmed. It's clear that the UK wanted to send a strong message to the crew of Russia's spy ship. It may not have been expecting the type of message that the Yantar sent back. It's unclear what type of lasers the Yantar crew used against the RAF aircraft and potentially the Royal Navy ships, TWZ says. The Yantar could carry a wide range of laser systems, some of which have enough power to cause serious concerns to the operators of any military equipment that is targeted with them. Depending on their output, lasers have the potential to temporarily obscure optics and the vision of personnel or cause permanent damage to both, TWZ reports. Russia may also have access to lasers that are powerful enough to burn holes through the hulls of ships and aircraft, though the Yantar is unlikely to be carrying them, and they certainly weren't used during the November 19 incident. But they could have been, and that may be what Putin wants the UK to realize with this latest act of hybrid warfare. Today, the lasers being shone at the UK aircraft and ships are relatively harmless, even if they could obscure the vision of a pilot. But tomorrow, Russia might send a ship that has far more dangerous lasers, and the UK wouldn't know about it until airframes start burning and hulls start getting breached. The Yantar being in and around the UK waters didn't come as a surprise. The ship has been operating off the UK coast for a couple of weeks already, TWZ reveals, and the UK Defense Secretary John Healey has clearly had enough after this dangerous incident. My message to Russia and to Putin is this: we see you, we know what you're doing, and if the Yantar travels south this week, we are ready. Healey raged in the aftermath of the laser incident. He's letting Putin know that the UK has eyes on his spy ship, and that it won't be deterred from tracking it by a few lasers. Intimidation isn't going to work, but at the same time, Healey recognizes that this latest incident is a sign that the UK needs to do more to protect itself against increasingly blatant signs of aggression from Russia. Euronews says that Healy has previously issued a warning about what the Yantar is capable of, noting that it has caused problems in the Baltic Sea before. It is part of a Russian fleet designed to put and hold our undersea infrastructure and those of our allies at risk. Healy said before making the case that the UK should be focused on increasing defense spending around a week before the Labour government releases its new budget. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has already said that the UK plans to spend big due to the increasing threat that Russia poses to Europe. Back in June, Labour committed $5 billion or almost $2 billion to building at least 6 new munitions factories in Scotland and Wales, which are intended to add 1,000 jobs to the UK economy, in addition to ensuring that the country's military had a ready source of explosives and other munitions that it can use should it ever be drawn into a conflict. As for overall spending, the UK already commits a fair amount to its defense, and it's gearing up to spend more. According to the Commons Library, the UK spent $62 billion or around $78.5 billion on its defense during the 2024/25 financial year, and it's expecting to add around $2 billion or about $2.6 billion to that sum for the 2025/26 financial year. That's annual spending growth of 3.8%, though Healy seems to be suggesting that it may not be enough. The UK is also part of NATO, and it has pledged to meet that organization's new recommendation that all of its members spend 5% of their gross domestic products on defense. It will take a while for the UK to get to that level. As The Guardian reported on June 23, the UK plans to hit that spending landmark by 2035, meaning it has given itself a decade to incrementally increase spending before hitting the target. Will what Russia just did prompt an acceleration of that plan? It seems unlikely in the grander scheme, though we may see the UK decide to increase spending a little more for the coming year. Why? This isn't the first time that the Yantar has made news for prowling around in another country's waters. Just over 10 days before the Yantar found its way into UK waters, it was causing similar problems for the Netherlands. According to the Maritime Executive, the Dutch Ministry of Defense was forced to escort the Russian spy ship out of its territorial waters after having deployed the offshore patrol vessel HNLMS Friesland to track the Yantar's movements. The Yantar didn't start firing off lasers this time around, instead sailing away into the North Sea while being shadowed by the Dutch escort. The Netherlands then deployed a hydrographic survey vessel named the HNLMS Snellius Snell ES to examine the area where the Yantar was loitering to ensure that Russia's ship hadn't done anything untoward to undersea infrastructure. November 19 is also just the latest, rather than the first instance of the UK having to deal with the Russian spy vessel. The Maritime Executive notes that the UK's Ministry of Defense accused Russia's ship of loitering over critical undersea infrastructure in UK water zone back in January 2025, and just a few months before that, in November 2024, the Royal Navy sent an even more pointed warning to Putin and his ship-based spies by having one of its submarines surface close to the Yantar. This was a rare occurrence. Submarines don't typically reveal their locations unless they're forced to do so. This time, the UK decided to let Russia know that it has submarines capable of destroying the Yantar in a heartbeat, and that those submarines are tracking every vessel that Russia sends the UK's way. We published a video covering this encounter between the Yantar and a UK submarine back in February, so check it out if you'd like to learn more about this incident. The point we're making here is that Russia wouldn't have a leg to stand on if it tried to claim that the Yantar accidentally found its way into UK waters on November 19. The ship's lasers were no act of self-defense. They were a tweaking of the UK's collective nose, a little warning delivered by Russia that it is going to continue these types of incursions into UK territory, all as Putin continues to push boundaries during his intensifying hybrid war against NATO's European members. We'll get back to that hybrid war a little later in the video. First, let's take a closer look at the Yantar to understand why it is such a concerning ship, even without the lasers that it's shining into the eyes of RAF pilots. The ship had been on the UK's collective radar for years before this latest incident, as revealed by the fact that the BBC published a profile on the Yantar in January 2018. At the time, Russia seemed to be using the ship for fairly benevolent purposes, having deployed it to Argentina to search for a missing Argentinian submarine that sank, claiming the lives of its 44 crew members. This deployment hinted at the Yantar's main strength, which is that it's absolutely loaded with oceanographic research equipment. That is actually spying and surveillance equipment that allows its crew to examine the sea and ocean floors. Even in 2018, long before Putin launched the Ukraine war, the BBC was pointing out that the Yantar could be used by Russia to target the massive networks of undersea fiber optic cables that span the globe and are key to worldwide communication of many types. The outlet spoke to a UK-based expert on the Russian military named Igor Sutyagin, who said, "It's difficult to tap into optical fibers, it's just light inside, not electrical data. It would be easier just to cut the cable." Sutyagin said that the Yantar was more than capable of tampering with undersea cables. He was right on the money. TWZ points out that this is a vessel that is capable of reaching and cutting objects that are located up to 18,000 feet below the water's surface. It is also likely capable of placing devices on the seabed that could cut cables even after the ship has left the waters in which it was loitering. That will be worrying to the UK, the Dutch, and every other nation that has had to deal with Russia's spy ship. If TWZ is right about that capability, simply escorting the Yantar away may not be enough to stop the ship from doing damage. Of course, Russia claims that the Yantar is a research vessel, and it's only used for legitimate purposes that just so happen to keep on taking it into the waters of nations against which Putin has an axe to grind. It's all just a massive coincidence, Russia claims as it clings to its thinning veil of plausible deniability. It's obvious that the Yantar has far more than legitimate research on its agenda, especially now that it's starting to use lasers to distract the military ships and aircraft that are being sent to watch what it is doing. Sky News has also profiled the Yantar, and it claims that the vessel is also home to a pair of submersibles that can plumb to depths of 20,000 feet, which it points out is twice the depth needed to find the wreck of the Titanic. As for what the ship is doing in British waters, a maritime expert with the Royal United Services Institute think tank, Dr. Siddharth Kaushal, says that there is some degree of redundancy built into the UK's underwater communications cables. However, the country's gas pipelines are a very different prospect. I think in some ways the pipeline network is far more fragile because there we are more reliant on a handful of critical pipelines. Kaushal tells Sky News. That could give us a clue to what the Yantar is doing in the UK waters. This is a ship that has all of the equipment needed to figure out where these gas pipelines are. The UK has also taken aim at Russia's gas market since Putin invaded Ukraine, having banned the import of Russian liquid natural gas back in 2023. In November, the UK also introduced a maritime services ban focusing on that type of gas, which may be the impetus behind Russia sending the Yantar into the UK's water, as well as its decision to prod the UK with the use of lasers. That's speculation, but whatever the motive was for this recent incident, there are reasons beyond the UK's gas situation that have made the country a definite target for Putin's ire. And one of those reasons is that the UK has become Russia's villain of choice, at least in Europe. That's according to a November 16 article in The Guardian that was written by Sean Walker and Piotr Sauer. The two note that Russia has been flinging accusations at the UK in recent months, including a likely fabricated charge that UK intelligence has attempted and failed to lure Russian pilots into defecting to the West. Russia's foreign minister and career-long Putin lackey, Sergei Lavrov, had plenty to say about this supposed incident, stating, "The FSB, Russia's Federal Security Service, exposed all this in great detail. I do not know how the British will wash themselves clean of it, although their ability to play the role of goose coming out of the shower is well known." That last turn of phrase is a Russian idiom used to describe somebody who always seems to get away with their actions, no matter what they may be. A few stones seem to have been thrown around in glass houses here, to paraphrase another idiom, but the fact that Russia is coming so hard for the UK via its ministers/propagandists tells us that the UK is increasingly high on Putin's agenda. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service has also piled onto the UK, stating earlier in 2025, London today, like on the eve of both world wars, is acting as the main global warmonger. Again, stones, glass houses. Putin seems to be the goose in Lavrov's little saying, especially when it comes to global warmongering. What is certain is that UK intelligence has been key to Ukraine executing several of its most damaging strikes against Russia, and UK weapons are often used to conduct those strikes. Russia's angst is more likely a reflection of the fact that the UK is helping a country that Putin illegally invaded, and it has been doing so since the Ukraine war began. The UK also happens to head up the coalition of the willing, which has promised to take an active role in Ukraine's ongoing security, which could serve as another reason why Putin wants to get one over on the UK. The UK also hasn't been quiet when it comes to calling out Russia's hybrid warfare actions over the last few years, and it's those actions that may offer another reason why the Yantar is using lasers against the RAF and Royal Navy. Taking a wider view of Russia's recent actions in Europe reveals that the Yantar incursion is far from an isolated incident when it comes to Russia using dirty tactics to threaten and intimidate Ukraine's European allies. Ships like the Yantar sailing in European waters are far from a new occurrence, as we discussed earlier. However, the use of lasers is a clear escalation designed to bring already simmering tensions closer to the boil. And compared to some of the UK's European allies, that ship throwing around some lasers is fairly minor. On November 18, The Independent published a report stating that Russia may have built upon its many recent provocations using drones, jets, and tankers with a more direct attack against Poland. That nation has been another target for Putin in recent months, as we discovered when Russia sent around 20 drones into Polish airspace. However, it's possible that Russia may have taken things a step further with the recent bombing of a Polish train. Russia hasn't been confirmed as the perpetrator of this attack, yet The Independent says that the country is the prime suspect. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk labeled the attack an unprecedented act, and has blamed a pair of Ukrainians who are believed to be collaborating with Russia. Those collaborators have since fled to Belarus. Thankfully, the attack seems to be a case of sabotage rather than anything else, as no people were harmed in the train bombing. Still, if Poland's suspicions are correct, this is a sign that Putin is ready to take his hybrid war against NATO's European members to another level. One person who is certain of that fact is the Italian Defense Minister, Guido Crosto. On November 18, Politico reported on a 125-page paper published by Crosto that accuses NATO states of inertia in the face of ever more brazen Russian attacks. The hybrid war is continual and attacks critical infrastructure, decision-making centers, essential services, and the fabric of each country, with daily and growing risks of catastrophic damage, Crosto said in his paper. He also delivered a message as much to his own people as Italy's NATO allies. We are under attack, and the hybrid bombs continue to fall. The time to act is now. Crosto may be right. The attack on a Polish train shows us that Russia is stepping up its sabotage game to bring a new level of hybrid warfare to Europe. Though not as damaging, the Yantar deploying lasers against the U.K.'s aircraft and ships demonstrates the same thing. Putin seems increasingly ready to go beyond the prodding and testing that he has been doing throughout much of 2025. Russia has gone on the attack, albeit in an unconventional manner, and it may be time for the UK and the rest of Europe to start responding more harshly to these kinds of incidents before Putin's confidence grows to the point where he declares all-out war. It could even be too late for that. As Europe prepares for that potential war, an analyst with the Institute for the Study of War claims that the war has already begun. Russia is in phase 0 of that war, and it's preparing to move into phase I. Find out what these terms mean and how Russia is already at war with Europe in our video. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to Weapons and Empires for more coverage of Russia's latest hybrid warfare attacks against Ukraine's European allies.